Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode. I have invited my favorite older sister again. This is Robin and Robin Davis. She is on a previous episode. If you want to go back and listen to that episode first, go over here or something. I'll try and add that, like, YouTube link or whatever. Anyway, that was a super fun episode. Robin and I talked about, some of our fun stories of our childhood. I hadn't planned on it happening that way, but it just organically just happened. And I thought, oh, this is super fun. Let's just keep moving down these silly stories. And then Robin told me some stories that I never knew of before. So I go back and listen to that like every couple of weeks. And I'm like, oh, that was so fun.
It was like you guys gotta just join us in one of our lunch
Yeah.
dates, because our lunch dates are like hours.
And we talk about how our childhood was so funny or messed up, or how our parents are crazy, or
Or lovely.
yeah. Robin just told me that I shouldn't use words like crazy or weird, so I'm still learning. So I wanted to invite Robin back because she is, number one, an awesome person, and she's super funny and beautiful.
Thanks,
And all that
Roy.
kind of stuff. But she is actually has a very interesting life and work that she does. And I wanted to talk about that the first time, but it didn't happen. And so she kind of left, and she's like, oh, why did I come all the way just to talk about your childhood stories? I wanted to talk about me. No.
I did not say that.
I know you didn't say that. I'm a horrible person. I make up stuff all the time.
I like it. That's why we enjoy you.
So, Robin, why don't you tell us a little bit about what it is that you do professionally?
Okay, I would love to. It's my biggest passion, and what I could talk about it and geek out on it and nerd on it all day, every day for hours. So, if you need to restrain me, tell me.
You used geek and nerd. No, I'm sorry. Go
I
ahead.
can use
Keep
that
going.
about myself, and you can use that about me too.
Okay.
So I'm a life coach. I'm a certified life coach. I'm certified through the Life Coach School, which, in my opinion, and I've researched a lot of ways I could be certified. My opinion, it is the best school, the best education you could get to professionally help other people. I love it. So I looked in lots of different directions, maybe going back to college and getting a degree in psychology or social work or something like that. But life coaching to me is streamlined. I call it life math, because a lot of times we like to help people by figuring out what's going on outside of them and see if we can adjust those things. Or even if you had like a couples therapy, the couple would come in and you would say, okay, husband and wife, or wife and wife, or husband and husband, or mom and daughter, whatever. You would have to say, okay, what are your needs? What are your needs? And how can we fulfill each other's needs? How can we help each other? And what life coaching does is it takes 100% accountability for our life on ourselves, and it goes right to the cause of the problems. And the cause of the problems is never your husband, it's not your kids, it's not your job, it's not your parents, it's not your past. Your problems only exist in our head. We have thought problems, and that's it. And so when you just learn you have thought problems, you're like, well, the only person who can control my thinking or manage my thinking is me. Nobody can get to that spot in your brain where you can originate your own thoughts and you can figure out what works for you. So we get to work with the mind. We get to work with the brain. So my education, my specialty is how the brain works. When you understand how your brain works, because that's our problem solving tool, that's where our reality lies, you can solve anything. And nothing outside of you
awesome.
has to
My
change.
wife would say, well, how is fixing my brain going to quit gonna keep Roy from snoring in my ear every night? No.
That's a great question. I can answer that if you want.
We can get back to that. We don't need to
Okay.
talk about me. No, but that sounds awesome. So let's back up. How did you get involved with this? Like, nobody knows this, but you used to be a massage therapist, and I used to come over to your house, and you used to work me over and cause extreme pain, and I loved it.
You're
So how did
welcome.
you transition from that into what you're doing right now? I mean, you've done a ton of stuff, but I don't
Yeah,
want
it's
to
a great
recount
question.
your life's history. But how did you
Right.
get involved with this life coaching in the first place?
It's so great because that's kind of where it all started. So I said my passion is learning this. I've always been drawn to this kind of information. I don't know why I have always been drawn to it, but any books I read, it all is about how to master the mind. And I kind of think I came upon that when I realized by the results of my life, it wasn't quite going the way I wanted it to. And I kind of looked for different places for answers. And part of that search went towards Buddhism. And Buddhism was a beautiful way of saying you can master your mind and that we suffer needlessly because of our mind. And that took me on a path down, oh, I want to learn more about that. Like, tell me more about that. So I started to just binge, eat, read, podcasts, YouTube, videos. And this was actually about over 20 years ago. I started, so actually they didn't have podcasts and they didn't have YouTube, but I had books on audio and I would have like cassette tapes. And I found that people like Tony Robbins and Deepak Chopra and Eckhart Tolle and Byron Katie and so many authors and so many teachers that I would be so turned on when I would read them. Wayne Dyer, I could just think of so many names, and I would be lit up like a Christmas tree when I would read these things. I could not get enough. I was insatiable. I'm still insatiable. And so as I would do massages and I would learn, people's bodies would manifest their emotional and mental issues, their past issues. Their bodies would create signs of those, right? And so when I started to learn that, I would be talking to people about where their pain was, where it was coming from, and I would know from Eastern medicine what the psychosomatic relationship was. It wasn't their body that we needed to fix, it was the way they were thinking, that we needed to address how they were feeling because that is being brought up in our bodies. So we would have these conversations, and then people would love that. They would love how empowered they would feel by that they could actually fix it themselves on an emotional, like intellectual level. And so then people would start to tell other people, hey, when you go get a massage from Robin, you're going to also get life coaching. And I didn't even know that was a thing. I never heard of the word. I'm like, life
So
coaching,
you
that's
were
kind of fun.
you were like a trickster. You're like, I'm going to get you in here to work your shoulders and your back, but then I'm going to get you in this life coaching thing to actually solve your problems, and then you'll come back
Well,
from.
it's funny because I've been massaging for 20 years and I've been doing this organically, just kind of going into some of their issues and resolving them. Because if they were like, I have this chronic pain in my neck, I'm like, who in your life represents a pain in your neck? And then we would be talking about their kid or their husband or their mother or some relationship they would have. And then we would talk about how to think about that differently, how to see it differently. And it was never about, oh man, I can't believe your kid is like that. And, oh, I know, like men or whatever, right? Like we would always go to the cause, and the cause is the way you're thinking. And so then what would happen is people would ask for a massage, but what they really wanted to do was talk.
Yeah. Would
So
they ever come in? They're like, can we just skip the me getting naked and getting in between the sheets and stuff, and then just go straight to our conversation?
Yeah, they would, because they would be like, I need to talk to you and I'm going to cry and I don't want to have to cry with my face down. Like, can we just talk? Is that weird? And I
That's
would
so
be like,
funny.
no, of course that's not weird. And so that's what kind of led me into life coaching. What is that? So they assigned me as their life coach. So I started looking that up and I'm like, what is life coaching? And I found out it's a thing. And I found out I can get certified in that and I can have like professional training in that. And that blew my
Awesome.
mind, because federally, we're not regulated. We don't have a federal regulation. The FDA isn't like giving us regulations as life coaches. So that's kind of fun, because you can find the content that works for you. And so yeah, that's how I got started. And then I had shoulder issues, and so I thought, well, and this is what happened. This is funny. My life coach in my coaching school, because everybody needs a coach. And that's what's so fun about this. Like Tiger Woods, the greatest at the time golfer in the world, he has a coach, right? There's nobody that doesn't need coaching.
Right.
And before, I was thinking, I just have to know everything, because whatever issue people bring to me, I've got to know how to solve it. But what I learned in the life coach school, this model, I don't have to solve anything. I just have to teach them the way their brain works, and they have all the answers there for you. And that's kind of ties into Buddhism, is you are your own guru. You have within you all of the answers, maybe covered up with some programming and some incorrect ways of thinking, but within you lies all the solutions. And so that was a super fun philosophy that the school had that I completely resonated with. So it took all of that. I have to know more than everybody to help them. And I didn't have to know that anymore. I just could say, I don't solve your problems. Knowing this, going inside, you'll solve all your problems. And just, I'm
Gotcha.
an educator. It's so awesome.
Yeah, it was so interesting. I remember the last time I went and got a massage from you, as I was going out, you had this lady that was coming in, and suddenly she was just telling me this story about how she had a missionary that had left, and he was this you know son from straight from heaven, and she loved him, and he was the greatest thing in her life, and now that he was gone on his mission, her life was falling apart or whatever. And I was like, okay, why are you telling me this? So that was, yeah, it must have been that was what she was there for, was a little bit of
It's true.
life coaching rather than the massage therapy. Because
I
I
know.
was
I feel
like,
like people who
okay,
do
I
hair
was just
want to
getting
be a
massage,
life
why are
coach
you telling
too.
me this story? Although I thought
Yeah.
it was very interesting,
Yeah. Yeah.
because when I talk to some of my friends, when they go get a massage or whatever, it's like a completely silent
Mm.
activity. And so
And I like
when I
that.
told them that I would go and talk to my sister the entire time, they're like, she talks to you? And I'm like, well, yeah, she's my sister, but at the same time, yeah, it's fun to talk and stuff. So
Yeah, as a
obviously
massage
you were doing
therapist,
something different than everybody else.
well, what I do is, in my training for massage therapy, you don't talk. If people are talking to you, you usually keep it short and you just answer their questions. And I do tell them, you're not here to talk to me or entertain me or get to know me or make small talk. Like, I don't need that. You don't need that. But if you feel more comfortable talking, you're more than welcome to talk. And so you want to honor that silence. If they're silent, you don't talk, for sure. And you don't make small talk. But if they start asking you questions, I would always, I try to be like short answers, but then maybe direct it towards them. Like, oh, well, how many kids do you have, if you want to share, or something like that? Because sometimes you could pick up on that they do want to talk. It's kind of like when you go to a hairdresser or your lash person. Like,
Your
you
lash
want to,
person, like
you,
I would
yeah.
know something about this. Oh yeah, I remember the
You
last
lash
time I went and
person.
got my lashes done, we had the greatest conversation.
It's funny how that situation, you do become a listener. People want to talk, they want to emote because it's like stuck in their body. And they have somebody who has a listening ear, who doesn't have an agenda, who isn't attached to the people they want to talk about. and who just will listen and love on them. And so I think sometimes it could be conducive to people who wanted to get off of their chest their emotion. And that was a really, we keep using this word, but a really organic way of people. When you release tension in your body, you release emotion, and emotion comes up. And so sometimes they just would want to talk about it.
Okay. So how did you transition from a massage therapist professionally full-time to this life coaching thing?
I love this story. So I'm being coached by my coach. We get lots of coaching in school, just like you get lots of massages in massage school. And she taught us this concept that your life is, as a whole, in the percentage 50-50. There's 50% unwanted and 50% wanted, or you could say negative or positive. And I was like, not for me. Like, my life is 90% positive.
I know, that's what I was going to say.
negative.
I mean, like 99% awesome, 1% not as awesome.
I know. I thought the 10% is reserved for if somebody close to me dies, but really, like, life is killing it. And she said, and plus I know how to manage my mind, and I have skills, but I'm
Everybody's
spoiled
watching.
rotten.
They're like, oh, I hate these people that their life is perfect.
So happy. Well, it was interesting because she said to me, that's great, and I love that you have those skills and that your life is so spoiled rotten, but I would challenge you that if you don't have enough uncomfortableness, that you're stagnating a little bit. You're not putting yourself out there to grow enough. Like, you've created a world of comfort, and you need to be challenging yourself more. And I was like, whoa, that's probably true.
Yeah, if your life's totally awesome, then you aren't doing it right. You need to expand your horizons. You've already mastered whatever horizon you're on. Now broaden that thing.
Exactly. And so she always has challenges for us, right? And at this time, the challenge was do an impossible goal. And I was like, whoa, an impossible goal would be two things that were my impossible goal. One of them was to compete in pole fitness, because I've been in pole fitness for a while, for 10 years. I've never done anything with it. I've never performed. I've never competed, even though I've had lots of people suggest it and like try to challenge me with it. My belief system was there's no way I would be good enough to do that. There's no way I'm putting myself out there like that. And then to really build a life coaching practice. And because I thought, well, people come to me for a massage and then they want some, to talk and stuff, but like to actually have a life coaching practice and make money at that and make that my new dream, because my shoulders were starting to hurt. And doing 20 years repetitive movements, my physical therapist, our sister, was like, you have to stop massaging if you want your shoulders to get better. And the shoulders were keeping me from doing all the things I also love, like pole fitness and partner acrobatics and handstands and yoga and lots of different things. They were just in pain all the time.
Gotcha.
So I thought, what if I did this radical move and expanded myself and signed up for a pole competition, and then literally retired from massage therapy and started my life coaching practice. And so I'm so appreciative of being coached, because it made me get uncomfortable. And I'm telling you, competing in pole fitness was really, really uncomfortable. I had to go through so many of my insecurities and so many of my stories and really boost myself up with my thoughts and decide how I was going to think about it, how I was going to feel about it, and put massive action behind it and do my goal until I accomplished it. And then same thing now with life coach. I did one competition and 2 performances, and now I'm really taking my goal on for like making my life coaching practice. I just want to help as many people as I can. So what was so difficult
about doing the competitions or performances? Just your thought of you weren't good enough, or what?
That
was the main thing that was holding you back? Or
that was one of the main things, is I'm not good enough. Like, I won't. And the fun part of the coaching is I had to write down all the things that were holding me back, all the thoughts that I had. And then you have to write down the thoughts, and you have to think, are these thoughts or are these facts? So one of them was, my hands get sweaty and I'm going to slip. And then I wrote that down, and then I wrote down, I won't be entertaining enough. My skill level isn't good enough. I've judged other people who have performed, and I don't want people judging me.
Okay.
I'm too old.
You're like,
I'm 50.
I watched them and they sucked, and I don't want people to watch me and think that I suck.
Exactly. Right? You just project. You're like, I don't want people to think that about me. And then I thought, I'm too old, and you have to wear small clothes because you have to stick to a pole with your skin. So I'm like, is my body good enough? And just all those kind of insecurities. But part of my life coaching was, if this is the thought, you have to solve for them. Okay, well, this is a thought. My hands are sweaty. And my solve for that is, but I know I have other pole people, my daughter especially, who has sweaty palms, and she solves for that by using a prescription strength antiperspirant on her hands. So, I can do that. But I never answered that question before. I just let it stop me. I was like, yep, I'll slip, I'll fall. I can't hold myself on a pole unless I alcohol my hands every time I do a trick. But I knew that, but I never solved for it personally, because I just let that stop me in my tracks, and I would say I'm not good enough skill level, but I would literally advise people, if you compete, you're going to really grow in your skill level because it will demand you to put time into it. I would say that to other people, but I would never internalize that, because I was just like, I can't do it. I just really believed the thought, I can't do it.
Gotcha. Yeah, that's hard. Myself, like I used to play volleyball, not professionally or anything like that, but as I
You're
get
really
older,
good.
like I can't jump as high as I used to. And so like when people come and ask me to play with them, sometimes I'm like, I'm not good anymore. You don't want me to come play with you. But I hear from you that I shouldn't judge myself. If they ask me to play, then maybe they feel like I'm at least good enough to, sit there and pass the ball up or something like that.
Exactly. Isn't it funny how our brain it tends to have this default of keeping us from doing the things that would make us grow, the things that are uncomfortable. It just wants us to be safe, wants us to stay in the cave, wants us to just not go out in the world and put ourselves out there.
Uh-huh. So then how did you make this jump where you were a massage therapist and then you're like, you know what, I'm not going to do that massage therapy stuff anymore, but I'm going to do this life coaching? And then how did you let people know that that's what you were going to do? And then when you let them know, they were like, oh, well, yeah, that's what I need. I need you to help me with that.
So that's a great question. So what I did is, I have all these contacts, right? I've built a clientele for 20 years. I've worked full time. I've made really good money doing massage therapy. So
Okay.
they already know me. So I just put myself out there and said, I'm retiring in massage therapy, but this is my new exciting chapter of my life, something I really want to share with you. And then if you want to come and get a free first session, I'll show you what life coaching is. You can see if I'm a good fit for that for you personally. At least you'll be educated in what I do. And maybe if I'm not a good fit for you, or it's not something you need, you'll know you can refer me to somebody, because I have these relationships. They're every single one person on my table I'm in love with. Every single person on my table is a friend of mine, so we've developed that kind of a relationship. So it was so easy. I feel like it's almost like cheating, but I still just put myself out there, right? I went to, literally, this is a true story. I went to
So
Home
did you
Depot
like
with,
send out emails, or did you call each one of them, or?
at first, if they would try to book a massage with me, I would just send that text to them.
Oh, okay. You're like, I can't do that anymore.
Yeah, I don't do this anymore. And then I didn't have people's emails. That would have been really helpful. And I didn't send out a huge text to everybody. I'm not tech savvy, so I don't really know how to do that. And I didn't want to solicit myself necessarily, but every time they contacted me, I would just let them know.
Okay.
But I do mention it a lot. Like, I was just going to say, I went to Home Depot with my daughter in Vegas, and some guy was helping me find something that was ordered for us, and he couldn't find the box. So we went to customer service, and while she was looking for it where it would be, he said to me, "So what do you do for a living?" And I said, "Oh, I'm a life coach." And he said, "What does that mean?" And I told him, and he said, "I want a life coach." And then the girl who came up to tell us where our order was, she said, like, "I want a life coach. What does that even mean?" And so I gave them my numbers, and they both texted me, and I just said, "Hey, this is kind of what I do. Why don't we have a first session free? And then you can see if it's something that you need and something that we would be a good fit for." And so it's kind of fun. Like, I really believe if you want something, the universe is going to hook you up. It's going to set you up for success. You just need to take advantage and put yourself out there and really believe in what you're doing, and it just helps you. Life helps you and happens for you as well.
That's awesome. So I assume that probably referrals is like a big thing too, right? Like you might tell somebody this is what you're doing, and they're like, well, that may be good for me or may not be needed for me, but I know somebody that may really need this, and then they maybe tell them to like text you or something like that.
That's exactly how I built my massage therapy business. I did not advertise once. I didn't advertise ever, but I learned this lesson early on in my massage therapy business. I was newly divorced for the second time. I had 2 kids I had to take care of, and one of them was really struggling in life and school and emotionally. And I felt like, how am I going to be able to take care of us financially and be the mom I want to show up as? And so I was just focused on numbers, numbers, numbers. I need to make money, 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 money. And so every client was just a means to an end, right? I just need to get clients. And then I had this older gentleman. I am indebted to him forever because he said to me, "Robin, don't worry about money. Love people, take care of them, and they will take care of you." And what he meant by that is, if you help them, they will tell everybody. And that changed my whole world. So when somebody would get on my table, I would set the table like I had a king coming to my house. And I would set an intention to just give them all that I had to give them, every love, every attention. My mind would never wander, and I would just focus on what I could do for them. And I would do my very best. I don't know how that would compare to other people, but I could do my very best. And I did that. I took care of one person at a time and just gave them my all. And then they would tell everybody. And then pretty soon they would tell everybody. And I grew a business so fast that way. And so I believe in that now. Like, I'm willing to give first free sessions because, number one, I love what I do. I love helping people, and I know I can. And then I also just know that if everyone were life coach, the world would just be a better place. But if I just focus on that one person, and I've had it happen already. I life coach this one girl, and she said, "I've told 2 work associates." I life coached this one guy, and he Venmo'd me, and on the Venmo he wrote, "If you want to change your life public, come get life coached by Robin and up level." And they tell all their work associates. So I just trust that through word of mouth, if people find it to be of value, my business will grow.
That's awesome. So um was there a time or an experience that you were doing this life coaching, you were helping somebody, and then it really worked, and then you were like, yeah, okay, I've got it, this is what I want to do? Like, where was the point where you were like, yeah, this is really going to work?
So I
Like,
know.
for example, let me say, like, I think some people, so my wife and I, we were having some problems with one of our children, and we went to see this therapist, and the way that it happened, it was like an hour session, and the therapist was like trying to get to know our son, and then it was over, and then we left, and I was like, okay, now what? And I think I was somewhat disappointed, because you would think they would say, okay, we need to talk more. Why don't you come next week? Or why don't we go every week or something like that? That never happened. And so I was like, well, that was a complete waste of my time and money.
Mm,
You know what I'm
yeah,
saying?
because they just
So
got to know him, but there was
was
no
there ever a
follow
time
through.
where, I guess my question is, was there a time where somebody was like, you really helped me and it wasn't a waste of my time?
Right,
Or I spent all this time and it was fun talking to you, but nothing's changed. Nothing's happened.
right.
You know, like maybe a
Yeah,
psychiatrist or a psychologist, would have like a married couple come in, and they talked and it ended in divorce. And then maybe the psychologist was like, wow, that didn't do jack. You know what I'm saying? And maybe there's been times where you've talked to people, and maybe you can talk about that, but also a time where somebody just blossomed and you were like, you know what, man, I'm so glad I did this. It was great.
yeah. I have so many stories, so many people that I'm like, wow, that was amazing. But to kind of bring it all together, when you come into a life coach session, the thing I love about my training is it is specific. There is a time where they come in and they give you what we call, let's reveal the problem, right? I'm not going in to get to know you. I want to reveal the problem that they came in here to solve. I always think of every session, if I charge someone $1,000, how am I going to make sure that they got their value in 1 hour? They walk out of there and they're like, that was the best $1,000 I've ever spent, right? So the first thing we do is we talk about reveal the problem. Give me a thought download. Tell me what's wrong, what you're stressed out about, what's not happening, and why. And they just tell me their situation. And I find out from there what the circumstances. We kind of get it all out. Then I teach them this model. I go over it. And what I do is I say, okay, this is your thought download. And what we're going to do is we're going to take one specific thought. Well, actually, I'll back up. After I get their thought download, we play this game called Thought versus Fact. And I ask them, all of these things that you've said, how many of these things are a fact and how many of these things are a thought? And that is so revealing, because people think their thoughts are facts. They think he was mean to me, and that's a fact. But actually, he's mean to me is a thought. Facts are neutral, and facts aren't interpretations. So facts, everybody from all over the world at any time in history would agree with you. So facts are like, he said these words, not he was mean to me. And so we figure out, oh, we chip away, that was a thought. That was a thought. She hates me. That was a thought. He never shows me any attention. That's a thought. All of these things. And then they're like, oh, wow. All of a sudden, they're kind of unraveling themselves from these thoughts that they thought were actually facts. And when we can help them see that, they're like a little less attached to that story because they know it's not factual. Then after that, we take a specific thought and we model it. We do this whole thing. So I'll tell you a little bit about this. What I teach them is that all of the circumstances, he said this to me, and I get really specific. He said, I look fat in those jeans. And we write that down. That's what he said. If a camera was watching the situation, everyone would agree, he said, I look fat in those jeans.
Okay.
And then we talk about that is a circumstance outside of you, and every circumstance outside of you, every single one is neutral. It's a fact. It doesn't matter how much it lights you up. It's a fact.
Okay.
And then we talk about you give it the meaning that it has for you. Every circumstance, you're going to have a thought about it. And that thought is going to give its personalized meaning for you. Because if somebody said, I should say this one, this would be fun, because my husband does this. He says, you look thick, right? He
You
says
look
that
thick.
he's like
this.
babe, you thick,
Thick.
right?
Thick.
Exactly. And the kids hear that and
But
they're like,
chicks don't like that.
oh
They're
my
like,
gosh,
whoa,
don't
I'm
say
not
you
thick.
look sick. But I know
Let me
what
turn
he
this
means
way
by
and you'll
that,
see how thin I am.
right? When he
How
says,
dare you say
girl,
that?
you thick, I know it's his favorite thing. And I take that as a compliment. But everybody's going to, you take that as like, that's right, check me out. I work out, I'm putting on my fitness. Everybody's going to take that in a different way, right?
You know,
So,
yesterday Dylan was like, yeah, all us Merrill boys are thick boys. And I was like, I don't know if I like the way you said that. But yeah,
yeah,
maybe he meant
just
was
a
like
word.
this. It's like all
Yeah.
of us are like, you know, buff and tough and stuff, instead of thick meaning like all of us are over 200 pounds or something like that. I'm like, no, I used to be 185.
It's so true. And it's a perfect example, Roy. It's just a word, but we give it the meaning that we have in the context. And it's always, almost always based on the meaning we give it is based on a lot of our insecurities.
Okay.
It's what we default to. So it's kind of interesting. Not always. And it's good to see either way, we can make the circumstance mean whatever we want it to
So
mean.
Blake was like, hey, thick is awesome. And you're like, no, thick sucks. So
No,
that's what you're
I,
saying. The thought it gives it meaning or something like
yeah. So when he says that to me, I'm like, thanks, baby. And the girls, my daughters, are like, I can't believe you said
that. I
that to
can't
her.
believe
Why
you
would you
said
say
that.
that to her? Like, they'll have, and I'll have all kinds of people have
I'm going to
different
slap you silly, Dad.
ideas of what that means. Some people will be like, that's right. She is so bootylicious. I mean, you can't control how people think about what you say or what you do.
Okay.
Everybody's going to come up with their own version,
Okay.
right?
Yeah, you know, I could give another example of something I said that I didn't think it was offensive, but he later on. So I was at work, and you know how here in Utah we don't have like a lot of black people, and at work we have even less. We have like a lot of white people, we have a lot of Indian people, we have a lot of Asians, but very few black people. And one of my coworkers, he was black, and I was making a comment. I can't even remember how it came up, but I was saying, yeah, if you want to go find some black people, you need to go to the gym. Or I was like, you either got to go to like the gym or the basketball court. And he was like, yeah, there's not a lot of, because I was trying to tell him how there wasn't a lot of black people in Utah. And later on, he like asked me to go to a conference room with him, and he's like, hey man, what you said was super offensive. And I was like, oh, it was? I'm sorry, I didn't know. And he's like, yeah, I get that from a lot of you people. Like, you have no idea what you're saying. And yeah.
It's so true. And do you notice that you had no intention of that at all whatsoever when you said it?
Uh-huh.
But he gets to make whatever meaning he's going to make out of it.
Yeah.
Right? It's so interesting. So this is how I coach the cause. Like if he were to come to me, I would say, Roy said this, and I would get as specific as he could remember of the words you said. And I would
Roy's
say to him,
racist. He
no, I
said
would never
this.
say that. That's the thing.
Oh,
Is
okay, sorry.
right. I would only say
Here,
the
I
facts
failed
of
life
what it
coaching
is.
101.
No, it's normal. I would ask exactly the specific words, and then I would say to him, what did you make it mean? Because the last thing I'm going to try to do is coach someone into giving other people the power over their lives.
Okay.
Right? It's
So
not
instead
helpful.
of, well, Roy was just trying to
Yeah.
make an example of how there's not a lot of black people in Utah, and what you made it mean was he was racist or something.
Yeah. Because
Okay.
I wouldn't know what you meant by those words either. The only
Gotcha.
person who would know what was meant by those words was you.
Okay.
Everybody else is going to assign something personal about it.
Okay.
Right? And so it would be empowering, because if he came to me, I would help him take his power back and say, he just said those words. Those are a circumstance. It's neutral. It's a fact. What are you making it mean? And then when he told me what he made it mean, I would ask him, how did that feel? Because every thought we have has a feeling attached to it. And
Okay.
he would say, I was offended.
Okay.
Right? And I would say, okay, when you're offended, what do you do? because
He's
this
like,
is the order that
first
it
I
happened.
hated him, but then I asked him to come into the
Right,
conference room, and then I yelled at him.
right. So his initial thought was, he had some thought, which we don't know what it was, but he
Right.
did share with you that his feeling was he was offended. And so when you feel offended, you act a certain way. I mean, he might have gone to a different thought and thought, I want to resolve this with Roy. And he had different feelings and different actions. But while he was offended, he probably did what everybody else does when they're offended. He probably spun about it in his head. He probably complained about it with other people. He probably, just
Went to my manager to be like, Roy's a freaking racist. I hate that guy. And he's like,
right. It
well,
could
maybe
be
you
he
should talk to him
avoids
about
you.
it.
He doesn't like to talk to you. He, when he does talk to you, he is a little more guarded. He
Yeah.
feels judged. You find out all the actions that they do that are fueled by that feeling. And then you ask them, well, what's the result, inevitably, of being offended, of this original thought?
Okay.
And the result usually is, let's pretend we can come up with a thought that would be offensive, is
So maybe in this
I'm different.
example, like the result would be we weren't friends anymore.
Right.
And you're like, well, is that the result you wanted? Did you not want to be friends anymore?
Exactly.
Like,
So the
no, I
thought,
wanted to be friends.
yeah, the thought will always match the result every time.
Okay.
It is important to know, because the thought, so if we said he lost connection with you, let's say the result was he lost connection with you because he was offended, we would find that his thought is what created that result for him.
Huh, interesting. Yeah, because like before we spoke every day and we joked and we had lunch, and then afterwards we didn't do that anymore. I'm not saying that that's what happened. I'm just saying that's what could have happened.
It could have been why, because of his thought about what you said. So this is the tricky part. You don't want to go, we're not connected anymore because of what I said. Most people would say, yeah, the reason we're not connected anymore, the reason he's not talking to you anymore, is because of what you said.
Okay.
See, that takes all of his power out of it. And that's blaming you and assigning you responsibility for his feelings. And that is never the case. So it's cool also for you, because you could say, I'm not responsible for the results. He is responsible for his thoughts and feelings, because I wouldn't have known that he would have thought that.
Gotcha.
Right? And it can give you compassion, and it can give him compassion. It doesn't make anyone the bad guy. It doesn't make anyone wrong. Even his thought wasn't wrong. His thought led to a feeling, which led to a result.
Okay.
And so would he want that result? And the result wouldn't be, yeah, I was friends with Roy before, but then I interpreted what he said, and now all of a sudden I don't want to be friends with him anymore. But if he could see, I could choose another way of seeing it. I have infinite possibilities of what meaning I could give this. I'm not even limited to 1 or 2, 3 on a menu. I literally could make this mean whatever I want.
Okay.
Because he's making it mean, he's inventing that and making it up anyways. He has to come up with a meaning, and he's just coming up with it out of thin air, or mostly because of something he's experienced in the past, or his insecurities.
So do
you
try and tell them, you're like, instead of, okay, so do you try and say, look forward to what kind of result you want, and then make your thoughts manifest that result, or match that result? Is that what you're saying?
Right. You're like so advanced. That's exactly what we do, is we do the model, right? The very model you and I just did. And then we talk about, okay, eventually I have to really get them to understand it is their thought. And once I see that and I do this test question, I say, now, why is it that you were offended? And then they'll usually go into more stories. They'll usually go into their past, or my mom used to say this, or I got beat up, or whatever. And then we'll kind of work through that again. And then eventually I have to keep teaching them, your circumstances are neutral. They're just facts. You give them the meanings. And when I see that I said, now, why were you offended again? And they say, oh, because I chose to think, I didn't choose it because it was unconscious, but because of the thought that I believe that, he thinks I'm different or something. And so when they get their brain wrapped around that, oh, this is my thought causing my feelings, then we go to what I call an intentional model, like what you were saying. Let's start from the results we want in life, and let's
Okay.
go up the ladder to see how we're going to get it. So I want to keep a connection with Roy. I really
Okay.
enjoy his personality. I really want to work with him and not have that awful feeling. Okay, so we want to
Yeah,
stay
I
friends
mean,
with Roy.
everybody wants that because
Right,
awesome.
exactly. He's missing out. And then I would say, what would it look like if you were friends with Roy? What would your actions show? And he would say, well, I'd come up and talk to him. I would laugh. If he said something, maybe I would ask him what he meant by that. Maybe I would communicate more clearly about how I'm feeling. And then I would say, okay, what kind of feeling would you need to fuel those actions authentically? And he would say, I would need to feel friendly. I would need to feel comfortable around Roy. And I would have him pick one emotion. And then I would say, okay, so what's that empowering thought that you can believe? Because you can believe any thought if you want to. And I would say, what thought could you believe that would help you feel comfortable around Roy, that would help you be natural with him, that you wouldn't be offended by what he said, because you would maybe communicate how you ask more questions what he meant by that. You would get clear on who Roy is instead of just making a quick judgment or something like that, right? And then
Yeah.
he would tell me, oh, the thought is that Roy likes me.
So
Something simple.
he wouldn't intentionally say anything to hurt my feelings. So that's
Roy
what your
wouldn't
thought is.
intentionally say, yeah, or
Okay.
I like Roy. Anything. It could be any kind of thought. And we play with different thoughts till someone says, oh, that's the thought that feels good. And
Yeah.
then we practice that thought.
When I was in high school, I had this friend, you know him. He was all over the place emotionally. Like he had high highs, really low lows. And we were really uncomfortable bringing outside friends into our friendship because we thought that he would offend them at some point in time, because that's kind of the person he was. But he was still our friend. Like he would say stupid stuff to us all the time, and he would like overreact, and he would yell at us and do this, but it was just like nothing. Because I guess we made the thought of, well, that's just who he is. He doesn't mean to do it. It's just he has some kind of chemical imbalance in him or something. I don't know what kind of thought we had, but somehow we got to be in such a frame of mind where he could do anything and it would not destroy our friendship somehow. And that's weird.
That is
But
such a good example,
that's
Roy. That's
how it
perfect.
got to
Yeah.
be sometime, because
Yeah.
we knew he was going to do something crazy. It could have been like we could we could we could hold bets between my friends, and I'd be like, okay, I say it's going to be today that this friend is going to say something stupid, or nobody like, no, I think he's in a good mood today, it's going to be tomorrow. That would be the kind of debate. It would be either today, tomorrow, or maybe in a couple hours. You know what I'm saying? But it wouldn't come into a bad outcome. For some reason, we just dismissed anything he said as like,
And the reason is you said the words perfectly. You had a state of mind, you had a frame of mind that you just decided a thought, and that had this natural cause and effect. Your thoughts are
so
always
that
the
thought
cause.
was, you could say anything and it would never offend me
Yeah.
somehow.
It could be that. It could be he doesn't mean to. He doesn't mean anything by it.
Mm-hmm.
It could be he likes us. He just doesn't maybe know how to say things appropriately. It could be any kind of those thoughts that you probably used all of them to get that friendship to work. But it's such a good point that anything happening outside of you, you could make that result mean anything you want. You could have the result that you want out of it. You could hang out with the most cranky friend, like you were just saying, cranky is probably not the word, moody friend. You could have the most disagreeable spouse. You could have the most, and this I don't want to just throw this out and be flippant about it, but you could literally have an abusive relationship. You could literally have your child die. You could have go from really extremely, what we were taught is really extreme circumstances, to really neutral circumstances, like you stubbed your toe, and you can have you can make anything, you don't have to suffer. I guess that's what I want to say. You don't have to needlessly suffer. Now, am I saying let's take every circumstance and put a smiley face on it and just pretend that we're always happy? No.
Right. It's like
not,
that Seinfeld episode where Kramer, oh, who was it? It was George's father would always use this phrase, serenity now, right? So anything would happen and he'd be like, serenity now. And then by the end of the episode, it had built up inside him so much that like suddenly he just blew up and just like destroyed something. He like destroyed the whole room, and everybody was like, what's going on? And they're like, he's like, you know what? That's on me. And then he walks off and people are like, hey, but my room is still destroyed. So
what
you're saying
happen?
We don't try and put just a smiley face on it, because then all that pent up frustration will build up and build up and build up, and then suddenly explode.
Right. We want to look at our thoughts. I kind of like to use them as like children. You know how children come to you for attention. They just merely want your attention. And you can either be like, get away from me.
Well, your kids might come to you. My kids run away. I don't know. Go ahead.
Think of like a little child, not teenagers. But they come to you for attention. And really, that's all they need. They don't need you to fix it. They don't need you to band-aid it. They don't need you to assess blame for it. They just come to you for attention. And I like to think of thoughts that way. They're literally innocent children. They come to you. They just show up. Like nobody conjured up a thought. Nobody said, you know, we have these thoughts and they just happen, and we think they are us. We even judge ourselves by our thoughts, but we didn't ask for our thoughts. We were programmed with our thoughts. We were taught our thoughts. We repeat our thoughts. We make some of them habitual. We agree with them, but sometimes they just pop up and they have nothing to do with us. But we have this idea that they're right and they're true, and we give them a lot of meaning, right? But if you can look at your thoughts like a little innocent child coming up to you and just saying something, and you don't want to be like, kick them, and you're like, shut up, I hate that thought, that's a terrible thought, get away from me. Like serenity now would be like, I'm ignoring you, you don't exist. Okay. Right? And you wouldn't want to come up and be like, so you don't want to push them away, you don't want to judge them, you just want to give them your gentle attention. You want to understand them. You want to look at them.
Like, and maybe where did this thought come from?
Yes.
Why did I have that thought? That's
yes.
Interesting.
Yes. And even this is just a thought. Where did it come from might be helpful, but more of a helpful streamlining, if we want to get like $1,000 session value out of it, would be like, how does that thought feel? Like, it doesn't really matter where it came from because we can't solve for that. How does it feel? Okay. Well, it feels like crap. Okay, but we're not going to judge the thought. We're not going to judge the feeling. We're going to actually just observe it. So the way to process a thought is to take yourself out of the believer and put yourself into the observer, where you get to observe your thoughts. You get to observe how it feels. You get to observe how you behave. You get to observe the ultimate results that are happening in your life. So that like actually happens, that thought to feeling to actions to results happens like that. It's so programmed. It's so lickety split fast. We didn't even know it happened till everything was broken, right? Okay. And then we are like, okay, I'm going to go back and I'm going to look at, why did I feel that way? Because we always know why we always know what we feel. Feelings okay. are very attention getting, right? We know when we're sad. We know when we're agitated. We know when we're pissed off. We know when we're happy. We know when we're full of joy. We can feel that, and that really has our full attention. We don't know the 60,000 thoughts that come through our head every day, all day, every year after the same year, because they're usually repeated since we were little, but we didn't know that we had thoughts. So when we can feel how we feel and look at that thought and say, that was a thought that created that feeling, we can go back and we can look at that thought and we can revise it. We can come up with something new and original. We can question it. And my life's work is to question everything.
Okay.
So to question
So in
that
the
thought,
end, like as the observer, you look at that thought and you're like, okay, that thought has no merit.
it's not serving me.
Yeah, that's not helpful. So I'm
Right.
just going to let it pass through.
I'm going to watch it. I'm going to look at, and it'll pass through. And I love how you said that, because that's what thoughts do. They come up to go. They don't come up to stay and ruminate and bury and kick away. They literally will come up to go. And if you
Okay.
can look at them as an innocent child with love and compassion and attention, with no judgment, you will have such a more empowered life and be so much less reactive, right? Because you'll have a minute where you can pause and say, okay, I'm feeling a certain way. I want to do this. I've had somebody say to me, I want to call them while I'm mad, because I want them to know how I feel. And I would never advise that. I would say, wait, let's take a minute and let's look at that feeling, because that negative feeling is telling you you're not wanting to go down that path, right, of anger. However, let's be angry. Like, let's go. Let's think and feel it and go through the process, because eventually it's going to come up to leave. But then let's go back and look at that thought and see where we want to be, because we don't want our actions through anger to necessarily play out, but they will. We're human. We're gonna play out angry. We're gonna play out lots of different feelings that aren't going to give us the results we want in our relationship. A lot of different results we don't want in our workspace and things like that. So what I like to teach is, once you can start catching a thought, I like to stop people on this train at the level of emotion. Have the thought, let's feel the emotion, let's sit with the emotion and the thought and just be with it and breathe. Kind of lean into it, understand it a little better,
And
because you
then
can go deeper into it.
make sure that the actions are not dictated by your thoughts and feelings.
Right, exactly.
Gotcha.
But that the
So,
results are dictating your thoughts and feelings.
so you know how like I had to learn Japanese when I lived in Japan. Japanese language is like a stack. In the computer programming world, the stack is you put an information on there, and then you put another information, and another information, and another information, and then you'll pop off the information, and then you'll use it. Japanese is the same way. It's not the language is not like English, how we have subject, verb, object. Theirs is subject, object, 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 verb at the end. So what you have to do when you learn Japanese is you have to just sit there and listen to everything they say until they get to the verb, and then you pop everything off the way that you put it on, and then you're like, oh, okay, I understand what you're saying now. So
wow.
it's I kind of get the same thing. Like, you have a circumstance, you have a thought, you have a feeling, you want to do something, but then you think, okay, is that the outcome I want? If not, what was my action that I wanted to do? If not, what feeling made that action happen? And then what thought, blah, 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 blah. I don't know what I'm saying,
It's
but
brilliant.
I'm just
No,
saying
it's
that
really true.
you want to think backwards on your model. What outcome do I want? Okay, what actions lead to that outcome? Okay, what do I need to feel in order to have those actions? And then what kind of thoughts would provoke that feeling, whatever. So it's almost, you need to live life backwards.
You said it perfectly. My goodness, you're an A+ student.
Oh,
No,
we
that's
only
exactly.
rehearsed this 3 hours before this podcast. Everybody.
He's never heard of this entire model until just now. No, that is
Well,
beautiful.
thank you so much, Robin. I know you have an appointment you have to go to. So this has been an extreme information dump, and I'm sure I'll have to watch this like 2 or 3 times again to
Yeah, and
truly understand what's going on.
so much more to build upon this, but I love that we really got a good foundation of the model and how it works. And I feel like anybody who watched this, literally, you can use this, like, steal it, copy it, write your thought download every day and then pick a thought and do a model on it. And then, like Roy said, go do an intentional model. Okay, I actually want to feel this way and I want the result to be this. And you just fill it in. You can elevator up and down the model any way you want to until you find the right fit. And then maybe next time we could talk about how to swim and get through the steps from our unintentional model to our intentional model. Because if this was easy for us to think and believe, we would already have the results we want.
Gotcha.
Right? And that's my job, is how do we
go
get
from
you from
unintended to intentional.
Right.
Gotcha.
Because if you already believed these thoughts over here in your intentional model, you'd already have those results, but you clearly don't. You don't have those thoughts. You don't believe those thoughts. You don't believe that you are enough. You don't believe that whatever it is. So there's a process to getting from one model to the other. And that's the fun part.
Awesome.
That's
awesome.
the work.
Well, thank you so much for taking the time to talk to me about this, Robin. This has been sweet. It would have been better had we been in the same room together, but this virtual
Social
thing
distancing
has worked out fine too, I think.
I know. Well, big virtual hug.
There you
I
go.
love you so much. Well, you should see when Roy hugs me. I have to be careful. It could crush every
that's
single
one thing
bone in
they
my
don't
body
see
to
is
dust.
that I'm like 3 times as big as you.
So awesome. He's my bear brother.
Well, thank you so
love
much,
you.
Robin.
Come
and
on again. Thank you.
we'll get together another time, maybe 3 or 4 weeks from now, and we'll talk about becoming intentional.
You're a fantastic student.
Thank you. Thank you.
Mwah.
I'll bring you an apple next time.
I appreciate that.
Okay. Talk to you later. See ya.
Okay. Love you.